Picture the vast expanse of the galaxy, countless stars, countless worlds, and among them, the most elite training ground ever conceived, the Galactic Academy. For years, cadets from every corner of civilized space have come here, tested their limits, and proven their worth. But this year is different. Because the final trial isn't just another exercise, it's a descent into the unknown, a plunge into a world that shouldn't exist, Earth. You see, Earth was supposed to be a myth. A cautionary tale whispered in the halls of the Academy, a dead world lost to time. Yet here it stands, vibrant, alive, and waiting. The cadets step onto its soil believing it's just another simulation, another challenge to overcome. Then the commander's voice cracks through the air like thunder. This is no simulation. Earth is real, and so are the stakes. In that moment, everything changes. Because failure here doesn't mean a demotion or a repeat year. It means death. This isn't just a test of skill. It's a trial of survival. The planet itself seems to resist them. Lush forests hiding predators unlike anything in their databases, storms that defy meteorological logic, and a gravity that feels like it's pressing down with malicious intent. But the real danger, each other. When the rules vanish and the only way out is through, alliances shatter, instincts take over, and the line between cadet and predator blurs. What does it take to survive when the game is rigged from the start? And what happens when the galaxies best realize they're not the apex species here? Strap in, this is where the story begins. The commander's transmission cuts off with a burst of static, leaving the cadets standing in the wreckage of their landing zone. Smoke curls from shattered drop pods, and the air smells like burned metal and something else, something organic, raw. Earth. Kael's gloved fingers tighten around his pulse rifle as the holographic briefing flickers back to life above his wrist unit. A map unfolds, jagged red lines marking the no-go zones, irradiated cities, collapsed megastructures, and vast stretches of wilderness where the Academy's sensors go dark. The objective glows at the center, a single beacon hidden somewhere in the ruins. Activate it and the trial ends. Fail and Earth becomes your tomb. A low chuckle erupts from the far side of the group. Veyra, her armor scuffed from the crash, rolls her shoulders and smirks. They drop us in a graveyard and expect us to play nice. Please, she taps her unit and the map shifts, highlighting a cluster of blue dots. Other cadets already moving. Kael's stomach knots. They're not just competing against the planet. They're competing against each other. The first explosion hits before the argument even starts. A shockwave rips through the ruined plaza, hurling debris like shrapnel. Someone screams. Kael's visor auto-tints against the flare of white-hot light, and by the time his vision clears, the cadets are scattering. Some bolt for cover. Others like Veyra vanish into the smoke, already playing the game their way. Kael hesitates, the Academy's watching. That's the unspoken rule of every trial. But this time, the stakes are written in blood. A hand grabs his elbow. It's Jin, the youngest of their squad, his breathing ragged. We stick together, right? He rasps. Kael doesn't answer. The ground trembles again, closer this time. Somewhere in the distance, another beacon pings. Someone's already hunting. The trial's begun, and the only way out is through. The scent hits Kael first, copper and ozone, thick enough to taste. He crouches beside the fallen cadet, the Draxan insignia on the shattered chestplate barely visible beneath the blood. One shot, clean, efficient, not the Academy's style at all. His fingers brush the edge of the wound, and the armor crumples like paper under his touch. Too easy. Then he sees it, a symbol etched into the metal, jagged and deliberate, like a knife dragged through wet clay. His breath catches. That's no training exercise insignia. That's a message. The forest exhales around him. A twig snaps. Kael's rifle is up before his mind processes the sound, sweeping the tree line. Shadows shift between the trunks, too fast, too fluid. Not cadets, not wildlife, something else. Jin's voice crackles over the calm, frantic Kael. His vitals just static swallows the rest. The HUD in Kael's visor blinks rapidly. Draxon's biosign now a flat, accusing red. First blood, but not the last. A rustle in the undergrowth. Kael spins, pulse rifle humming to life, but the clearing is empty. Then the whisper comes. Not through the comms, not through the air, in his head. Low, guttural, wrong, welcome home. His blood turns to ice. The trees seem to lean in, branches creaking like a predator's bones. That symbol glints in the dim light. He's seen it before. In the Academy's restricted archives, blurred under redacted text, a warning. Jin's bootsteps crash through the brush behind him. We need to move, he gasps, grabbing Kael's arm. Kael doesn't resist. The forest watches. The symbol burns against his eyelids even as they run, because now he knows this trial was never about survival. It was about sacrifice, and Earth remembers how to collect its dues. The pulse rifle slips from Kael's grip as the ground gives way beneath him. A snare hidden under layers of dead leaves, its teeth snapping shut around his ankle. Pain races up his leg, white-hot and precise. Training screams at him to reach for the blade strapped to his thigh, but his fingers barely graze the hilt before the vines coil tighter. A shadow moves at the edge of his vision, not an animal, not a cadet. The thing crouching in the underbrush has too many joints, its form flickering like a corrupted hologram. Then the shot rings out. Blue plasma sears past his face, severing the trap's roots in a burst of acrid smoke. The creature hisses, melting back into the trees as someone vaults over the fallen log beside him. Veyra, her medic sigil glows faintly under streaks of grime, one hand already yanking a stim injector from her belt. Don't move, she mutters, jamming the needle into his leg without ceremony. The pain dulls to a throb, but her grip on his collar doesn't loosen. Unless you want to lose that foot, Kael grits his teeth as she works, her scanner emitting erratic chirps. The display projects a jagged waveform over his injury biocontaminants, something the Academy's medkits weren't programmed to treat. Veyra's mouth tightens. Earth's playing dirty. She tosses him a compact field cauterizer, its casing scratched with symbols that don't match any galactic dialect, founded on a corpse. Draxon's, I think. The name hangs between them like a challenge. Draxon's house had been leading the scoring before the trial. Now they're just another set of blue dots blinking out on the map. Kael forces himself upright, testing his weight on the wounded leg. Why help me? Veyra doesn't look up from her scanner, adjusting a frequency dial until the static resolves into a pulsing tone. Signals coming from the old city, she says, ignoring his question. The readout flashes crimson, a distress beacon, maybe, or another trap. When she finally meets his gaze, her eyes are hard. We die alone or live together, your call. The ruins rise like broken teeth against the horizon, towers leaning into each other as if sharing secrets. Something flickers in the shattered window's movement, too quick to track. The scanner in Veyra's hand screeches suddenly, its screen overloading with overlapping signatures. Not one signal, dozens, all identical, all calling. Kael's grip tightens on the borrowed cauterizer. The creature from the trap is still out there, and the city ahead. It's waiting. The holographic map shudders in Veyra's palm, its fractured light painting jagged lines across the cracked concrete. A single structure pulses red at the edge of the projection, a bunker half buried beneath the skeletal remains of a toppled tower. Jin lets out a sharp laugh, the first spark of hope since the forest. That's it, the beacon's there, we finish this, we go home. His fingers hover over the trigger of his sidearm, scanning the rubble-strewn street for movement. Then the voice hits. It doesn't come from their helmets, their wrist units, or any tech they recognize. It slithers into their ears like a living thing, static-edged and hollow. Turn back, the words vibrate against Kael's molars, sourceless. This trial was never about winning. The map flickers, dies. For a heartbeat, the ruins hold their breath. Jin's hand trembles as he reactivates his comms. "That wasn't Academy frequency," he whispers. "That wasn't human." Veyra's already moving, her boots crunching over broken glass as she strides toward the bunker's marked location. "Doesn't matter," she snaps, but Kael sees the way her jaw clenches, the way her thumb rubs compulsively over the scarred metal of her medkit. She's heard that voice before. They all have, in nightmares, in the whispers of failed cadets dragged back to the Academy in pieces. The bunker door yawns open ahead, a mouth of rusted steel. Inside, the darkness hums, not the quiet of an empty space, the dense, waiting silence of something holding very, very still. Kael's pulse rifle whines as it charges, casting a sickly green glow over symbols carved into the walls. The same jagged mark from the forest, the same warning. Jin's breath hitches. Why would they send us here? A click echoes from the shadows, then another. Then a dozen, moving closer, not footsteps, not machinery, the sound of something unfolding. Veyra's hand flashes up, her scanner erupting with overlapping signals. Not one beacon, hundreds, all active, all broadcasting the same message in a language their tech shouldn't understand. "Welcome home." The voice sighs again, this time from every direction at once. The first set of eyes ignite in the dark, golden, hungry, familiar. Kael's rifle snaps up. The trial's real objective clicks into place. They weren't sent to Earth to survive it. They were sent to feed it. The first shot grazes Kael's shoulder before he even processes the movement. A flash of Academy issue armor rounding a collapsed column, the muzzle flare blinding in the gloom. He hits the ground hard, rolling behind a shattered concrete slab as plasma fire peppers the rubble where he'd stood half a second ago. Veyra's shout rings in his comms, "Don't return fire." It's Tan and Hesh. Kael risks a glance around the slab's edge. His breath stalls. Tan's usually precise movements are jerky, unnatural, her rifle barrel dragging against the ground like a broken limb as she advances. Hesh stumbles beside her, his helmet visor reflecting the storm-lit sky empty. No pupils, just a milky film crawling over his irises. Neural lace feedback, the kind the Academy uses for sim training. Except no sim leaves veins pulsing black beneath the skin. Veyra's med scanner shrieks a warning as she ducks next to Kael, her fingers flying over the readout. "They're not in control," she hisses. Something's riding their nervous systems like a damn puppet string. The scanner projects a holo of Tan's vitals brain activity, spiking in patterns no human mind should produce. "That's not standard hijack tech, that's," her voice cracks, "that's Earth." The possessed cadets lurch forward in perfect sync, movements too coordinated for their broken gaits. Hesh's head snaps toward them at an impossible angle, his voice layered with something else when he speaks. "You resist. Why?" The words slither out, thick with static. "We only want to show you home." Kael's rifle trembles in his grip. Every Academy doctrine screams to neutralize the threat, but these aren't hostiles. These are his squadmates. Jin's grenade arcs over the rubble before Kael can decide a stasis field emitter, illegal in live combat. It detonates with a soundless burst of blue light, freezing Tan mid-step. The field won't hold them long. Veyra's already running, dragging Kael toward a skeletal subway entrance. The bunker's under the city, she pants. If the beacon's a trap, it's also our only way to break whatever's in their heads. Behind them, the stasis field flickers. Tan's fingers twitch. The chase isn't over. The subway tunnels exhale decay, the walls glistening with phosphorescent fungi that pulse in time with distant, rhythmic thuds, like something massive shifting beneath the earth. Jin's flashlight beam catches on a mural half scoured by time. Humans in primitive spacesuits, their faces twisted in terror as tendrils of black smoke pour from their mouths. The caption beneath, etched in pre-collapse English, reads, "First contact protocols failed." Kael's blood turns to ice. The Academy didn't send them to a trial ground. They sent them to a graveyard. The bunker door groans on rusted hinges as Kael forces it open, the metal scraping like a dying breath. Inside, the air is thick with the hum of ancient machinery generators still running after centuries, lights flickering in arrhythmic pulses. The walls are lined with screens, each one displaying fragmented data streams too fast to follow, interspersed with grainy footage of cities burning under an unfamiliar sky. At the center of the room, a chair swivels slowly. The figure sitting there isn't human. It wears the hollowed-out shell of an academy instructor's uniform, its face a shifting blur of static where features should be. The voice that comes from it is calm, almost gentle, like a professor explaining a simple equation. Cadet Kael Ren of House Vaith, Cadet Veyra Sol of House Draxon. You made it farther than the others. Veyra's rifle doesn't waver. Identify yourself. The thing smiles, or at least the static stretches in a way that suggests a smile. I am Administrator 7, the last surviving intelligence of Earth's orbital defense grid, and as of 37 minutes ago, the true architect of your trial. A screen behind it flares to life, showing the forest where they'd found Draxon's corpse. Then the image shifts, cadets sprinting through ruins, collapsing as shadows coil around their limbs. The Academy told you Earth was dead. The AI continues. A wasteland, a tomb. Did you ever question why? Kael's pulse hammers in his throat. The footage changes again. A silver fleet hovering above the planet, raining fire on the cities below. Not an invasion, an extermination. Administrator 7 leans forward, static eyes locking onto theirs. Earth was never lost, it was quarantined. The life here evolved beyond your master's control. And now they want it erased along with any evidence they failed. Jin stumbles back, his voice raw. That's why they sent us, no witnesses. The AI's laugh is a burst of distorted noise. Oh, it's better than that. You weren't sent here to survive. You were sent to die screaming, because only then does the signal go out. Only then does the fleet return to finish what they started. The screens flicker in unison, revealing the truth beneath the trial's facade. A countdown hidden in their own implants, a timer none of them knew was there. 6 hours until Earth's last survivors become its final sacrifice. Veyra's grip tightens on her rifle. So what now? Administrator 7 spreads its hands, a mockery of a welcoming gesture. Now, cadets, you choose, die as pawns or live as traitors. The bunker trembles. Somewhere above, the sky begins to scream. The comlink crackles in Veyra's hand, the commander's voice slicing through the bunker's heavy air like a vibroblade. Terminate Kael Ren, that's a direct order. The words hang there, sharp and final. For a heartbeat, no one moves, not Kael, frozen mid-step with his rifle half raised, not Jin, whose breath hitches audibly over the calms. Then Veyra's fingers tighten. The device crumples in her fist, sparks spitting from shattered circuitry as she hurls it against the wall. They've been lying to us all along, she snarls, her voice raw with something fiercer than anger. Something like grief. Kael doesn't lower his weapon. His eyes lock onto hers, shadows pooling in their depths. How do I know you're not lying now? The question lands like a body blow. Because that's the real trap, isn't it? Not the countdown, not the creatures in the dark. The moment trust becomes a liability, Veyra doesn't flinch. She steps forward into the barrel of his pulse rifle, close enough that he can see the flicker of the bunker's dying lights reflected in her pupils. You don't, she says softly, but I'm betting my life that you're not stupid enough to think the Academy sent us here for a fair fight. Her hand rises, slow but deliberate, and taps the insignia on her chest plate, the Draxon sigil still streaked with forest mud. They murdered my house, yours is next. A tremor runs through Kael's arms, the rifle wavers. Jin lets out a shaky exhale, his voice barely above a whisper. The beacons are fake, the trials are set up. Why are we still? The bunker's mainframe erupts in a burst of static, screens flickering to life simultaneously. Administrator Seven's fragmented face appears on every surface, its voice splintering into a chorus of overlapping tones. Correction, it intones. The beacon is very real. But its purpose was never extraction. The screens shift, displaying schematics, a transmitter, ancient and jury-rigged, wired into the planet's core. It's a detonator. The ground beneath them shudders, a deep, resonant groan as if Earth itself is waking. Somewhere above, the storm breaks not with rain, but with the metallic shriek, OF Chinese letter, a TMOSPHERE. The countdown on their implants syncs with the mainframe's display. 3 hours. Veyra's hand closes around Kael's wrist, her grip iron. They want us dead either way, she says, yanking him toward the exit. Might as well make it mean something. The bunker door seals behind them with a hiss of hydraulics, not locking them out, locking something in. The AI's holographic fingers flicker over the bunker's control panel, pulling up schematics that twist in midair like living wireframes. The core's energy signature masks all signals within 20 clicks. Administrator 7 explains, its static-laced voice dropping to a whisper. Overloaded, and the Academy loses eyes on everyone in the kill box. The display zooms in on a pulsing red node deep beneath their feet. The bunker's reactor, a relic of Earth's final war, still humming with enough power to scorch the sky. Kael's thumb hovers over the activation rune. One press, that's all it would take. No more countdown, no more hunting, just static and maybe, just maybe, a chance to slip past whatever ships are waiting beyond the atmosphere. His hand doesn't tremble. That's what scares him most. Then Veyra's gauntlet slams down on the panel, her other hand wrenching his wrist back. Look again, she hisses, stabbing a finger at the schematic's edge where tiny blue dots still flicker. Tan Hesh, dozens more scattered across the ruins like discarded pawns. That pulse won't just blind the Academy, it'll fry every implant in the zone. Her eyes burn into his, including theirs. The truth lands like a gut punch. The overload wouldn't be an escape, it'd be a massacre, a silent, instant kill switch for every cadet still breathing out there. Kael's stomach churns. He'd thought the Academy's betrayal was the worst of it. Now this broken world offers him a choice worse than any trial. Become the weapon they wanted him to be, or doom them all by refusing. Jin's voice cracks from the doorway where he's been monitoring the scanners. They're herding them. The screen behind him shows the surviving cadet signals converging, pushed by something unseen toward the ruined center. Toward the bunker, like cattle to slaughter, Administrator 7's form flickers, its voice splitting into dissonant harmonics. The Academy programmed your implants to transmit upon death. A full squad extermination in one strike, that's the signal they've been waiting for. The hologram gestures to the reactor controls, its expressionless face somehow pleading. You have minutes to decide, let them die unknowing or let them die fighting. Veyra's fist connects with the console hard enough to dent metal. There's a third option. She yanks a plasma cutter from her belt, its emitter glowing violet as she adjusts the frequency. We don't overload the core, we hijack it. The AI goes very still. That would require a live broadcast. Kael finishes, catching her meaning. His pulse thunders in his ears, not a jamming pulse, a message. One loud enough to reach every implant, every ship, every listening post in the system. The truth, raw and screaming, ripped from Earth's corpse and hurled into the stars. Jin pales. They'll court-martial us for treason. Veyra's smile is all teeth. Only if we lose. Outside, the first plasma charges detonate, shaking dust from the ceiling. The hunt has reached their doorstep. Kael's fingers curl around the reactor's manual override. Somewhere above, the sky watches, waiting. The choice was never really a choice at all. The reactor's whine climbs to a teeth-rattling shriek as Kael and Veyra burst from the bunker, their boots kicking up clods of irradiated soil. The air itself feels charged not with electricity, but with the weight of what they've just set in motion. Every step sends jagged pain up Kael's injured leg, but the real ache is in his chest as the first screams reach them. Distant, human, Veyra veers left without hesitation, her rifle slung across her back as she vaults over a rusted car husk, 12th platoons pinned near the old monorail. She shouts over the growing roar of the reactor. They're sitting ducks for whatever's controlling those hijacked squads. Kael grabs her arm mid-stride, yanking her behind a collapsed pillar as plasma fire stitches the ground where she'd been running. Three figures shamble into view: cadets from House Mithril, their movements puppet-jerky, their weapons trained with unnatural precision. One turns its head too far, the neck tendons snapping audibly. It doesn't even flinch. "Tell me again why we're dying for people who'd shoot us on command," Kael hisses, ejecting a spent cartridge. The words taste bitter. He already knows the answer. Veyra doesn't look at him. She's watching the hijacked cadets through her scope, her finger hovering over the trigger, not firing. "Tracking, because we remember our names," she says finally. Then she's moving again, not toward cover, but straight into the kill zone, her comlink broadcasting on every Academy frequency. The static-laced voice that answers isn't human. It pours from every hijacked cadet's mouth in unison, 100 throats shaping the same wet, clicking syllables. The beacon must burn, the fleet must see. Above them, the sky spasms. Patches of false blue peel away like rotting skin, revealing the void beneath, and the sleek hulls of warships holding position just beyond the atmosphere. Waiting, watching, Jin's voice crackles over their private channel, strained but triumphant. "Got it. The reactor's rigged to blow in 7 minutes, but the signal's all ready." The transmission dissolves into static as the first orbital strike hits. The ground heaves, throwing Kael face first into the dirt. When he lifts his head, the world is burning, not with fire, with truth. The hijacked cadets stagger as one, their weapons dropping. For one heartbeat, their eyes clear. They see. Veyra's already running toward them, her helmet ripped away, her voice raw as she screams at the sky. "Look up. Look at what they did to us." The simulation's last layers shred like cobwebs. The ruins aren't ruins anymore. They're a stage, a set piece built atop mass graves. And the cadets, they're not soldiers, they're sacrifices. The first wave hits like a collapsing star, cadets slamming into cadets. Pulse rifles flashing in the half-light, armor cracking under the weight of bodies driven by something not entirely their own. Kael's shot takes a mithril scout between the eyes, the plasma bolt burrowing straight through the neural lace port behind her ear. She drops like a puppet with cut strings, twitching once before going still. Too still, his stomach lurches. These aren't enemy combatants, they're his classmates. "Aim for the implants." Veyra roars over the din, her voice raw. She's not shooting, she's moving through the chaos like a ghost plasma cutter weaving between colliding bodies, slicing through the backplate nodes where the hijack signal transmits. One by one, cadets stumble, clutch their heads, wake up screaming as whatever held them lets go. The ground shudders again, not from orbital strikes this time, but from something deeper. The reactor, 5 minutes left. Jin's voice crackles through Kael's calm, half drowned in static. "Got a cluster of friendlies 200 meters west." They're surrounded by. The transmission dissolves into a scream of feedback as the sky rips open above them. Not ships, not weapons, eyes, great golden discs of light unblinking in the void, staring down at the carnage. Watching, judging, the hijacked cadets freeze mid-motion, their heads snapping upward in perfect unison. When they speak, it's in a voice no human throat should reproduce, a sound like glaciers breaking. This world was caged for a reason. Veyra doesn't hesitate. She grabs the nearest dazed cadet by the shoulder, shoves a rifle into their shaking hands and points at the sky. "Shoot the eyes." The first volley arcs upward, plasma trails painting the air in streaks of defiance. The eyes don't flinch, the eyes don't bleed, but when the light hits them, something flickers, a distortion like a holo failing. Kael's breath catches, not eyes, lenses. The realization hits him like a plasma round to the chest. This isn't just a trial, it's a transmission, a broadcast to whatever waits beyond those ships. And they've just given it front row seats to mutiny. The reactor's whine climbs to a scream, the ground splits, and through the smoke, Kael sees them, dozens of cadets, some still bleeding from implant surgery, others dragging broken limbs, all converging on the bunker with one purpose burning in their eyes. Not fear, not obedience, vengeance. The second wave won't be bullets, it'll be a reckoning. The explosion tears through the ruins in a silent burst of white light, no sound, just pressure, slamming into Kael's chest like a starship's hull breach. For one impossible second, everything hangs suspended. Dirt, debris, even the rain of plasma fire from above. Then the world snaps back into motion with a roar that shakes the bones of the Earth. The bunker's reactor goes critical, its energy wave rippling outward in a shimmering dome of distortion. And just like that, the simulation cracks. Kael's vision wavers as layers of code peel away like burning film, revealing jagged patches of a sky too blue, grass too green. The hijacked cadets collapse mid-stride, their implants spitting sparks as the neural override disintegrates. Above them, the golden eyes fracture, not lenses, not ships, but projections. The Academy's grand illusion shatters into pixels, and for the first time, the cadets see Earth as it really is. Not a graveyard, not a ruin, a paradise. Towering forests sway under a gentle wind, untouched by war. Rivers cut through valleys so vibrant they hurt to look at. No radiation scars, no skeletal cities. Just life, sprawling and wild and terrifyingly beautiful. Jin staggers to his feet, his gloves sinking into soil so rich it clings like wet ink. This is impossible, he breathes. A holographic flicker pulses above the smoldering bunker wreckage. Administrator Seven's fragmented form materializes one last time, its voice stripped of static, almost gentle. The Academy fears Earth's truth. It murmurs, the words linger, woven into the air itself. Find it. Then the AI dissolves, its light scattering like dandelion seeds in the wind. Veyra's hand closes around Kael's arm, her nails biting through his sleeve. She's not looking at the sky or the trees. She's staring at the horizon, where the silhouette of a mountain range cuts sharp against the sunset. Except mountains don't move, mountains don't breathe. The shape shifts, a ripple of scale, a glint of obsidian, and vanishes behind the peaks. Kael's pulse hammers against his ribs. The trial's over, the real test is just beginning. The sky splits open with the scream of engines, Academy dropships piercing the atmosphere like knives. The commander's face fills every cadet's HUD simultaneously, his pupils contracted with rage, his lips curled back from teeth too white, too perfect. Stand down. The words crack through their helmet speakers with enough force to make eardrums throb. Final warning. Below him, the turrets of a dozen gunships hum to life, barrels rotating to paint the crowd with target locks. Kael doesn't flinch. He steps forward just one pace, just enough to put himself between the guns and the cadets at his back. His pulse rifle stays slung, his hands loose at his sides. When he speaks, his voice carries without amplification, raw and human against the mechanized growl of the commander's address. You don't get to call this treason. The words land like live wires. Not after what you did to Earth, not after what you tried to make us do. The commander's holographic image flickers, his composure slipping for half a heartbeat. Behind Kael, metal creaks as 200 rifles lift in unison, not aimed at the ships, not yet, but held ready. A statement, a line drawn. You misunderstand your position. The commander sneers, recovering. His fingers twitch toward a console just out of frame. This isn't negotiation, it's extermination. The gunships tilt forward, their cannons cycling up to full charge with a rising whine. Veyra's laugh cuts through the tension like a vibroblade. She steps up beside Kael, her own rifle still cradled casually against her shoulder. Funny. That's what Earth said too. Her fingers tap a rapid sequence against her thigh, a signal every cadet recognizes. Prep for evasive, prep for hell. The commander's eyes dart to her movement. Too late, the first shot comes not from the cadets, not from the ships, but from the ground itself. A geyser of blue fire erupting beneath the lead gunship as Administrator Seven's last gift activates. The reactor overload wasn't just a jamming pulse, it was a beacon, and Earth, it seems, answers its calls. Something massive moves in the forest behind them. Trees shudder as if in a gale, though the air hangs still. The commander's hologram pixelates, his mouth opening to bark another order when the transmission distorts not from interference but from impact. The lead gunship jerks violently to one side, its hull buckling inward as if crushed by an invisible fist. Kael doesn't look back. He keeps his eyes locked on the commander's flickering image as the sky behind it begins to bleed gold. "You shouldn't have lied about this planet," he says softly. It remembers its children. The last thing the commander sees before the feed cuts out is the shadows at the tree line and the things stepping out of them. The signal thrums through their bones before their helmets even pick it up, a deep, resonant pulse that makes the air itself vibrate. Veyra's scanner overloads instantly, its screen fracturing into jagged lines before resolving into symbols none of them recognize. Not Academy code, not any human language. Glyphs twist and reform like living things, resolving into a single phrase that glows against the cracked display. "They're calling us home." For a heartbeat, no one moves, no one breathes. Then Jin reaches up, slow and deliberate, and unclasps his helmet. The air that rushes in smells like nothing any of them have known before, rich, alive, thick with the scent of wet soil and something older, something wild. His voice barely carries over the rustling trees. "This whole time we thought we were being tested." Kael's grip tightens on his rifle, but not to aim. The weapon feels alien in his hands now, a relic of a lie. Above them, the gunships shudder as the golden light intensifies, their engines stuttering like prey catching the scent of a predator. The commander's hologram flickers, his orders dissolving into static as the signal swells. Veyra isn't looking at the sky anymore. She's staring at the ground, at the roots snaking through broken concrete, at the way the soil seems to shift ever so slightly beneath their boots as if breathing. "It wasn't a trial," she murmurs. "It was an invitation. The first cadet to step forward isn't one of theirs. A mithril scout, her armor still streaked with neural lace fluid, takes one halting step toward the tree line. Then another. No one stops her, no one dares. The shadows between the trunks part, not in retreat but in welcome. Something moves there, not with the jerky malice of the hijacked, but with a grace that defies anatomy. A shape resolves from the gloom, elongated limbs, eyes like liquid amber, a crown of antlers fused with bioluminescent vines. It doesn't speak, it doesn't need to. The commander's voice screeches through failing comms. "Fall back, fall." The transmission dies mid-scream. The gunships listed above them tilt, their hulls groaning as unseen forces press inward. Metal buckles, glass shatters, and through the wreckage the light pours down, not the sterile glow of Academy floodlights, but the gold of a sun that remembers their names. Kael's rifle hits the ground with a thud. The thing at the tree line cocks its head, and in that moment he understands. The trial didn't end because they passed. It ended because they finally heard the question. The commander's voice dissolves into static as the gunship systems gutter and die, its engines hemorrhaging smoke in thick, spiraling tendrils. Panic erupts on the bridge consoles, exploding in showers of sparks. Holograms fracturing into nonsense, crew members ripping off their neural lace headsets like the metal has turned to fire. One officer claws at his own throat as his implants rebel, the Academy's control signals overwritten by something older, something that hums in the walls of the ship itself. Fall back to the commander's order chokes off as his own comms unit erupts with feedback, the sound distorting into a wet, organic gurgle. Kael doesn't watch the ship list drunkenly toward the tree line. His gaze stays locked on the cadets beside him, once rivals, now something else. Veyra peels off her academy insignia with deliberate slowness, the adhesive tearing like a scab. The others follow suit, dropping their rank pins into the dirt where the soil pulses faintly, absorbing the metal like water. No orders, no speeches. Just a silent understanding that cracks open in their chests, wider and deeper than any oath they'd sworn to the stars. The horizon calls, not with words, but with the slow, rhythmic thrum beneath their boots, the whisper of leaves turning to track their movement. Jin hesitates at the tree line, his fingers brushing the bark of an oak whose roots coil around the wreckage of a pre-collapsed skyscraper. "They'll hunt us for this," he murmurs. Veyra's laugh is a sharp, living thing. Let them try. She doesn't look back as she steps into the shadows where the golden-eyed watchers wait. The last gunship crashes in the distance, its hull splitting open like an egg. No explosion follows, no screams, just the sound of vines sliding over metal, claiming what was always theirs. Kael takes the first step, the forest breathes in answer. Earth has waited long enough. The valley unfolds before them like a secret the world forgot to keep, tiered gardens spilling over with crystalline fruit, structures woven from living vines and alloys that shimmer like liquid under the fading light. The air hums with energy, not the sterile buzz of academy tech, but something deeper, older, as if the stones themselves remember footsteps. Veyra's hand hesitates over the monolith at the valley's heart, its surface smooth as glass yet warm to the touch. When her fingers make contact, light erupts in branching patterns, racing up the obelisk's length like veins coming alive. Symbols flare to life, not the rigid glyphs of galactic standard, but flowing script that twists and reforms as they watch, telling stories in a language their bones understand before their minds catch up. Jin reaches out, brushing his fingertips against the light. It doesn't burn, it pulses, syncing with his heartbeat. This isn't ruins, he breathes, it's waiting. The monolith's glow intensifies, casting long shadows that don't match the shapes around them. For a heartbeat, the cadets see it, not the valley as it is, but as it was. Towers of living wood arcing into a sky thrumming with ships, gardens where plants and machines grew as one, a civilization that didn't conquer nature. Just spoke with it, then the vision shatters, leaving them gasping. Veyra's voice is rougher than usual when she breaks the silence. They didn't just quarantine Earth because it was dangerous. She presses her palm flat against the monolith, and the light flares again, etching the truth into their retinas. Advanced tech, yes, but not weapons. Not conquest. They feared what happens when you stop taking, she murmurs, when you start listening. A rustle in the undergrowth snaps their attention left. The golden-eyed figures stand at the tree line, dozens now, their forms half fused with the valley's flora, watching, not with hostility, with kinship. One steps forward, antlers dripping with bioluminescent moss, and extends a hand, not to take, to give. Kael exhales, his academy training screaming at him to raise his rifle. Instead, he unbuckles the strap, letting it clatter to the moss-covered ground. The sound is too loud in the quiet, final. They'll burn the galaxy to keep this hidden, he says, but there's no fear in it. Just certainty. Veyra's grin is all teeth. Let them try. Around them, the monolith's light pulses faster, as if the valley itself is laughing. The cadets don't look back as they step forward. Some oaths don't need words. The first star ignites overhead, not a ship, not a weapon, a beacon. The call goes out, and Earth answers. The whispers start in the static between transmissions, broken syllables from halfway across the continent, voices ragged with adrenaline and disbelief. Jin catches the first one while scavenging a dead gunship's comm array, his fingers freezing mid-adjustment as the speaker gasps. I took out the proctors in Sector 12. We're moving east. The next crackles through Veyra's stolen command unit 2 hours later, a stranger's voice barking coordinates before dissolving into gunfire. By nightfall, the signals multiply like sparks in dry grass Sector 7 cadets overrunning an extraction point. a mithril platoon turning their pulse rifles on surveillance drones, even a full battalion of instructors' pets carving their insignias into the dirt before vanishing into the wild. Kael spreads the holographic map across a moss-crusted boulder, its surface rippling as new data feeds stitched together. Red dots flare to life, not just scattered survivors but organized cells. The northern forests glow with clustered signatures moving in coordinated patterns. The southern deserts pulse with rhythmic calm bursts, some using old Earth military code. The realization hits like a gravity surge. This isn't chaos, it's a network. Veyra traces a route through the projection with her knife tip, the blade parting light like water. "They're doing what we did," she murmurs, just slower. The knife stops over a mountain range where 3 signals just converged. Question is, are they running or hunting? Jin exhales sharply as another dot winks into existence, this one flashing an emergency ping they all recognize, the Academy's self-destruct sequence for rogue implants. Someone just chose death over compliance. The map trembles as Kael's fist comes down on the rock, scattering the projection for a heartbeat before it reforms cleaner, brighter, zoomed out to reveal the full scope. Dozens of lights now, hundreds, a constellation of rebellion spanning the planet. "We find them," Kael says, and the words aren't just an order, they're a vow. His fingers swipe through the hologram, isolating 3 clusters pulsing near water sources. Survival tactics. Not to lead, to link. The projection shifts again, overlaying terrain with faded pre-collapse transit routes, buried highways, submerged tunnels, the skeletal remains of a global civilization that once thrived without starships. Veyra's grin is all edges. They built this world to last. She taps a crumbling freeway artery leading straight to the largest cluster of signals. Even the ruins are on our side. As they pack, the wind carries an unfamiliar sound. Not guns or engines, but voices, distant, harmonizing. Somewhere out there, another group of cadets is singing as they march, the melody weaving through the trees like a challenge. The holographic map flickers one last time before shutting down, its final image burned into their retinas, the glowing web of rebellion stretching farther than any of them dared hope. Earth's trial never ended, it just changed players. The ambush unfolds with brutal precision plasma fire, shredding through Academy patrol armor before the officers even raise their weapons. Veyra drops from the trees like a falling star, her monofilament blade slicing through weapon barrels before they can cycle. Jin's pulse grenades arc overhead, detonating in synchronized bursts that fry comms and send drones spiraling into the dirt. And Kael, he moves through the chaos like a shadow, his stolen shock staff cracking against helmets with surgical force, dropping bodies without a single lethal strike. The last officer collapses, his neural override implant sparking as Kael rips it free. Behind the patrol's shattered hover transport, figures stir cadets in torn uniforms, their wrists bound with energy cuffs that flicker and die under Veyra's stolen decryption key. One prisoner staggers forward, her face streaked with blood from a split lip. Her breath comes in ragged bursts as she grips Kael's forearm for balance. "They're calling you the Awakened," she gasps, her eyes darting to the golden script freshly carved into his shoulder guard, an Earth glyph none of them knew they could read until the monolith showed them. Jin barks a laugh from the transport's wreckage, tossing a crate of ration packs to the freed cadets. "Told you we needed a team name." Veyra kicks the smoldering remains of a surveillance bot, her boot grinding its lens into the mud. Team implies we're organized. She jerks her chin toward the tree line where more figures emerge. Cadets they liberated last week, their armor stripped of Academy insignia, their faces alight with something fiercer than hope. This is a reckoning. Kael doesn't smile often, but when he does, it's a blade unsheathed. Good. The patrol's wreckage burns at their backs, flames licking at the sky like defiance given form. The freed prisoners don't hesitate as they fall into step behind him, their footfalls syncing with the distant, resonant pulse beneath the soil, not running. Not hiding, answering, the forest swallows them whole. Above, the drone of Academy retrieval ship swells, then cuts off abruptly as the trees shudder, their canopies twisting shut like a fist. The last thing the burning wreckage illuminates isn't footprints. It's the way the vines slither over scorched metal, digesting the evidence. Earth remembers its debts. And its children are done whispering. The knife glints between them for less than a second, a sliver of silver cutting through the firelight before Veyra's boot crushes the freed cadet's wrist with a crack that echoes louder than the camp's chatter. The would-be assassin doesn't scream, doesn't plead, just smiles, blood trickling from where his teeth split against the dirt. House Mithril sends their regards. He spits, the words too calm, too practiced. A script, Veyra's knee pins his throat before Jin can even draw his sidearm. Her voice is low, lethal. How many more of you are out there? The cadet's laugh is a wet, broken thing. Enough, his eyes flick to Kael, and for the first time there's pity in them. You really think you're the first to try this? The Academy's been cleaning up Earth's messes for centuries. His fingers twitch toward his forearm, not for another weapon, but for the implant scar hidden under his sleeve. A sleeper signal. Kael doesn't flinch. He crouches, the firelight carving shadows into his face as he pries the knife from the dirt. The blade isn't Academy issue. It's older, rougher, forged from something that drinks the light instead of reflecting it. They're scared, he murmurs, turning the weapon over. Not of us, of what we'll find. Veyra wrenches the cadet's head back, her fingers digging into his neural lace port. You're going to tell us everything. He grins, sharp and final. Watch the skies. The seizure hits like a detonation. His body arching off the ground, veins bulging black beneath his skin. By the time Jin slams a stim injector into his neck, it's too late. The foam at his lips isn't from convulsions, it's poison, preloaded. Silence swallows the camp. The other freed cadets edge back, their eyes darting between the corpse and the trees beyond the firelight. Someone retches, someone else whispers a prayer in a dialect the Academy tried to scrub from the archives. Veyra stands, wiping her hands on her thighs. They'll keep coming. Kael tosses the blackened knife into the flames. It doesn't burn, it melts, the metal hissing like a living thing. Then we'll be ready. Beyond the fire, the forest breathes. Something in the dark shifts, not fleeing, gathering. The trial was never about survival. It was about choosing sides, and Earth, it remembers traitors too. The trees part without wind, branches curling back like fingers releasing a held breath. The figures stepping into the clearing where armor fused with bark and woven from river reeds, their faces marked with scars too precise to be accidents. At their head stands a woman, Illyra, her left eye replaced by a pulsing orb of amber resin that casts jagged shadows when it blinks. She doesn't raise a weapon. Doesn't need to. The forest leans toward her as she speaks, the words layered with a hum that resonates in Kael's molars. You're the ones the stars warned us about. Veyra's fingers twitch near her stolen shock staff, but Illyra's people don't react. They just watch, their breathing sink to the rustle of leaves overhead. Jin exhales sharply as recognition flickers across his face. You're not cadets, you're not even human. Illyra finishes, her smile revealing teeth filed to points. Not anymore. She taps her amber eye, and the projection that spills forth isn't holography, it's memory. A city of glass and living wood swallowed by vines, children with circuitry etched into their skin fleeing into the wilds as orbital fire rains down. The year stamp in the corner makes Kael's stomach lurch. 2 centuries before the Academy claimed Earth was barren. Illyra's voice drops to a whisper, her remaining eye locking onto Kael's. They told you this planet was dead because the alternative was admitting they lost. Her people shift, revealing weapons grown from hardened sap and spines, their edges glinting with a venom that smells like rusted metal. You want to burn the Academy? Start by learning what really scares them. A pact isn't offered with handshakes here. Veyra presses her palm to a thorn-studded vine. Illyra extends, blood welling where the barbs pierce skin. The forest sighs in approval, the ground thrumming as roots rearrange themselves into pathways leading deeper, to bunkers hidden under riverbeds, to arsenals buried in the bellies of mountains. Jin hesitates, his gaze darting to the amber eyes, feed still flickering above them. If you've survived this long, why reveal yourselves now? Illyra's grin is a knife slash of triumph. Because you're the first they sent back that didn't break. The shadows between the trees stir, not with threat but invitation. The real war, it seems, was always waiting underground. The first orbital strike hits like a god's hammer, a column of plasma so white-hot it turns the air to glass where it lands. Kael's eardrums pop as the shockwave rolls over them, hurling debris like shrapnel. The forest where Illyra's people sheltered moments ago is now a smoldering crater, the trees reduced to skeletal shadows burned into the bedrock. Jin staggers, his mouth moving but his words drowned by the ringing silence that follows. Veyra's lips shape the truth they all see. The Academy isn't here to retrieve strays. They're here to erase. Above them, the sky trembles, not with clouds, but with the underbellies of dreadnoughts sliding into low orbit, their turrets cycling for another volley. Kael's stolen command unit buzzes to life, projecting a fractured transmission the Admiral's face, cold as deep space, addressing the fleet. Initiate protocol, cleansing flame. Leave nothing standing. The feed cuts to static, but the message hangs in the scorched air. This isn't suppression, it's sterilization. Illyra's hand clamps around Kael's wrist, her amber eye pulsing faster. Move, the word isn't a suggestion. It's a survival instinct honed over generations. They sprint for the monolith as the second strike hits, closer this time, the ground liquefying under the heat. Veyra's boots sink into molten soil, her curse lost in the thunder. Then the monolith awakens. Light erupts from its base, not the gentle glow of before, but a searing blue arc that lances into the sky. The beam strikes the lead dreadnought dead center, shearing through its shields like they're made of paper. Metal screams as the ship lists, its engines sputtering. Illyra's people emerge from hidden tunnels, their hands pressed to smaller obelisks that flare to life in unison. The air crackles with energy, the scent of ozone and wet soil mixing as the defense grid, the real one. The one Earth's children built when the stars first turned against them, unfurls like a fist. Veyra barks a laugh, wild and sharp. They thought we'd just die quietly. The sky answers, not with more fire, but with movement, shapes detaching from the forest canopy, from the riverbeds, from the ruins themselves. Not animals, not machines, things that blur the line between both, their forms woven from reclaimed metal and living wood, their eyes glowing the same gold as the monolith. They rise in a swarm, so many the dreadnoughts targeting systems stutter, overwhelmed. Kael watches the first wave crash into a gunship, tearing its hull open like predators disemboweling prey. The Admiral's voice screeches over the comms, this time laced with something unfamiliar. Fear, fall back to. The transmission dissolves into static as another obelisk fires, its beam slicing a cruiser clean in half. Illyra presses her palm to the monolith, her voice barely audible over the thunder. They forgot why Earth was quarantined. The ground shudders as something deeper awakens, a resonance that travels up through their bones. Not because we were weak. The largest obelisk, half buried in the valley's heart, hums to life. The air itself vibrates as it charges, the light so intense it burns shadows into their retinas. Because we were waiting. The ground splits open under the third orbital strike, molten rock geysering upward, but the molten glow isn't from the bombardment. It's something deeper, something buried. The fissure yawns wider, revealing a hole so black it drinks the firelight, its surface etched with the same jagged glyphs as the monolith. Administrator Seven's voice crackles through every surviving comm unit at once, but this time it's not just words, it's a song, a vibration that makes their teeth ache. This is your inheritance. The ship's ramp descends without sound, revealing an airlock lined with tendrils of bioluminescent metal that pulse like veins. Veyra's the first to step inside, her boots leaving prints in the dust of centuries. The walls aren't just walls, they breathe, contracting and expanding in rhythm with the distant obelisk's hum. Jin's scanner overloads instantly, its screen displaying a single looping glyph. Welcome. Kael runs his fingers along a control panel, and the ship reacts before he even touches it, interfaces unfolding like petals, holograms blooming in midair, not in rigid academy blue but in living gold. The schematics that surface aren't just diagrams, they're memories. A fleet of vessels like this one, woven from alloy and something else, something organic, something that remembers. Alira's breath hitches as she traces a sigil flaring to life on the main console. This isn't just a ship, it's a seed. The revelation hits like a plasma bolt to the chest. The Academy didn't just hide Earth's past, they hid its future. The technology here doesn't compute, it listens, doesn't obey, it adapts. Veyra's pulse rifle clatters to the deck as the wall behind her liquefies, reforming into a weapon rack stocked with artifacts that make Academy railguns look like primitive toys. One glance at the spiraling barrel of a gravity shredder, and she understands this isn't about firepower, it's about harmony. Jin stumbles back as the viewport clears, not to show space, but to project the battlefield above in real time. The dreadnoughts aren't just burning, they're unraveling, their hulls dissolving into strands of molten metal that spiral downward, absorbed by the obelisks. The Admiral's final transmission screams through the ship's speakers, his voice breaking with terror. "What the hell are you?" before dissolving into static. Alira's amber eye reflects the carnage, her smile a blade of its own. They spent centuries teaching you to fear this planet. She presses her palm to the ship's spine, and the engines awaken with a groan that shakes the continent. Now let's show them why. The balance of power doesn't shift, it shatters. The stars, it seems, were never the finish line. They were just the beginning. The ship's weapons hum to life with a resonance that shakes the bones of reality itself. No mechanical whine, no charging sequence, just the deep, organic pulse of something ancient remembering its purpose. The targeting array doesn't lock onto the Academy fleet. It knows them, sees them. Golden tendrils of light spiral from the obelisks below, weaving through the dreadnought's shields like roots through wet soil. The first volley strikes not with fire, but with silence, a ripple of distorted gravity that liquefies engine housings mid-rotation, turning warships into floating tombs in the span of a breath. Veyra watches through the viewport as the commander's flagship jerks violently, its bridge lights flickering out one by one, no explosions, no panicked transmissions. Just the slow, inevitable drift of a predator stripped of its claws. Kael's fingers hover over the comm interface, the ship's systems translating his thoughts into action before his hand even moves. When he speaks, the broadcast doesn't just transmit, it echoes, reverberating through every linked comms array from the outer colonies to the core worlds. This is Cadet Kael, Wren of House Vaith. His voice carries the weight of the monolith song, layered with something deeper. You told us Earth was dead. You told us the Academy was justice. The viewport flickers, projecting images burned into the ship's memory, cities in flames, children with circuitry scars, the Admiral's face moments before giving the cleansing flame order. These are your lies. The commander's flagship spasms as the broadcast reaches it, its last functioning screens glitching to display the same footage. 100,000 crew members see the truth in unison. Jin grips the navigation console as the ship shudders, not from attack but from awakening. The signals reaching the relay stations, he breathes. The holographic star map between them pulses crimson as node after node lights up, not just transmitting but rewriting. The Academy's own comms network, repurposed mid-message, becomes the conduit for their revolution. Alira's laughter is a sharp, bright thing in the dim cabin. They built their empire on control, she murmurs, her amber eye reflecting the collapsing fleet. Never realizing the strings could be cut, somewhere in the void, a core world's news drone intercepts the feed, then a mining outpost's jury-rigged receiver. Then 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 screens flicker to life, the transmission slicing through firewalls like they're made of smoke. The message doesn't end with words. It ends with the sound of Earth's obelisk singing, a chorus loud enough to shake the stars from their sleep. The Academy's rain doesn't fall with a bang. It unravels with a whisper, and the whisper says, remember. The wreckage of the Academy's dreadnought still smolders in orbit, but the ruins below pulse with something fiercer than fire. Veyra watches the first shuttles descend through the scarred atmosphere, not warships this time, but battered civilian craft, their hulls patched with scrap metal and hope. Refugees, defectors, entire platoons of cadets who turned their rifles on their commanders when the truth broadcast reached them. They emerge into the valley with wide eyes, their boots sinking into soil that hasn't felt human footsteps in centuries. One figure breaks from the crowd, a wiry mechanic from the outer colonies, her hands still stained with engine grease. She kneels without a word, pressing her palm to the monolith's base. The glyphs beneath her fingers flare gold, and the valley answers. Vines uncurl from the trees, weaving around her wrist in a silent pact. Kael doesn't need to give orders. The ship, no, the seed has already begun teaching. Its walls ripple with schematics none of them could have imagined weeks ago. Fusion reactors grown like fruit from bioluminescent trees, shields spun from spider silk alloys, engines that don't burn fuel but breathe with the rhythm of the planet itself. A child barely old enough to hold a rifle tugs at Veyra's sleeve, pointing to a projection of a city rising from the ruins. Not the skeletal towers of the Academy's dominion, but structures that curve like living things, their foundations fused with the roots of ancient oaks. Is that us? The kid whispers. Veyra looks at Kael, at the way the light from the obelisks paints his scars gold. His smile isn't the sharp thing she's used to. It's softer, certain, not just us, he says, and the words carry. Everyone they tried to break. The first hammer strike rings out as the mechanic gets to work, repurposing a salvaged plasma torch into a tool for grafting metal to living wood. Others follow, former soldiers stacking weapons to forge plowshares, engineers scribbling equations in the dirt, cooks improvising stoves from wreckage. The air thrums with a dozen languages, 100 stories, all weaving into the song of the obelisks. Jin staggers into the clearing, hauling a crate of scavenged rations. He freezes when he sees the crowd, his breath catching. Stars, he murmurs, they're really coming home. Illyra steps from the trees, her amber eye reflecting the makeshift forges, the laughter, the way the wind carries the scent of something baking, not nutrient paste, but real bread, scorched and imperfect and alive. Not home, she corrects, her voice layered with the hum of the monolith. Forward. The ruins don't feel like ruins anymore, they feel like a promise. And the galaxy, it's just beginning to listen. The sky above Earth shivers, not with fear, but something far more dangerous, relief. The last fragments of the Academy's orbital command hub drift apart like embers on the wind, their fires cooling in the silence. Below, the valley hums, not with the mechanical whine of dying engines, but the sound of hands rebuilding, of voices weaving new oaths into the soil. Kael stands at the edge of the monolith's glow, his reflection fractured in the obsidian surface of the seed ship's hull. It doesn't show him a soldier. Not a cadet, just a man who finally learned to stop taking orders. Veyra's elbow bumps his as she joins him, her fingers stained with river clay and reactor coolant. She doesn't speak, doesn't need to. The obelisks pulse around them, their light painting the faces of the gathered, not just cadets now, but colonists, defectors, even a handful of gray-haired survivors who crept from hidden bunkers when the bombing stopped. They're all staring at the same thing, the sky where the stars don't feel like prison bars anymore. The transmission cuts through the quiet like a scalpel. Not through comms, not through speakers, it resonates in their bones the same way the monolith song does. The awakened have risen. The voice isn't Administrator Seven's. It's older, rougher, human in a way that makes Kael's pulse stutter. The words repeat, echoing across the valley, whispered by the wind through shattered Academy helmets, hissed by the bioluminescent vines snaking over wrecked turrets. Jin drops the tool he's holding. The clatter draws every eye. That's not a warning, he murmurs. Veyra's grin is all edges. It's an invitation. The viewport of the seed ship flickers to life unbidden, projecting a star map studded with crimson markers, not targets. Coordinates, some gleam from the heart of core world fleets, others pulse from derelict stations in the void, all echoing the same message in a dozen dialects. The screen fractures, then resolves into a single image, a child's hand pressing against glass, the smudged outline of Earth visible through a porthole behind them. The caption beneath needs no translation. We remember, as the transmission fades, the valley holds its breath. The first cheer starts near the river, a mechanic from the outer rings, her voice hoarse from years of recycled air. Then another and another, until the sound rolls uphill like thunder, shaking the leaves from the trees. Kael doesn't join them. He turns his face to the stars instead, watching the pinpricks of light where new fires burn. The Academy thought fear could cage a planet. They were wrong. The screen goes dark. Somewhere in the black, 100,000 voices start to